Hello, everyone, and welcome to Geotab's Wildcard Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining us today. As always, my name is Shay Green, and I'm a learning consultant here at Geotab. Today's session, we'll be hearing from Ricky Rivera, our Senior Customer Success Specialist, and he's going to be discussing utilization trend reporting. And while Ricky introduces himself, we're going to launch a quick poll for you guys just to see what areas you want a little bit more focus in for today's presentation. And with that, go ahead and fill out that poll, and I'll hand things over to Ricky to get that intro started.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much. So I am Ricky Rivera over here with Geotab at the Customer Success Specialist team. The Customer Success team, for those that don't know, they're kind of like the personal fitness instructor of the gym that's Geotab. So we're really here to make sure to help you exceed your goals, get reporting in, and so on, just to be able to assist out. I've actually been with Geotab for the last 3 years. It's been an amazing experience. But for the past couple of years, I've worked closely with the product development team to work on custom reporting, to really build things that customers are asking for. I've had the pleasure and experience to work with customers that range from tens of devices to hundreds to now thousands of devices. So I hope any customer that's on the line here that you're looking at some of this reporting, and I hope that it can help you at no matter what size of database, what size of fleet that you're managing right now. And today's topic, it's a really continuation of trend reporting. A couple weeks ago, we talked about safety. Today, we're talking about utilization. I'm going to be going into engine on time, idling, and things like that. So let's go back to the poll there and see what you guys have submitted.
All right, perfect. So we're just going to close that out and share those results. So it was a very close race today. So coming in first place with only 1% difference at 54%, we have engine hours, followed very closely in a tie for second place with most and least used vehicles and idling control, and then distance is at 42. So it looks like we're
Awesome.
looking at engine hours, most and least used vehicles, and idling control are the top ones for today.
Great, great, awesome. Thank you so much for that. I'm glad so many people are interested in those topics. We're going to cover those first two definitely and get into some details on the rest of it as well. So super excited to be able to get into it. So let's go ahead and go over the agenda for today's conversation. So first, I'm going to review with you, for those that are new on the call, what even is trend data? What is that, right? What from there, why is it even important to you? What's in it for you when you're downloading it? Why would I even take the time to build the report, download the report, and so on to be able to use for my fleet? And from there, how do you get to trend data? I'm going to go ahead and forewarn you, this is not going to be the presentation that goes deep dive into details in every single Excel code or anything like that, but I'm here to steer the ship, get you going, to give you some good ideas. And with that, I'm going to get you into some trend report examples as well, so that way you can actually go ahead and see some of the things that some customers are asking for, giving you some real world examples, so that way you can actually see how that data is being used right now by my team, by our customers, and so on. We're going to get into engine on time, and I'll explain how to get that. We'll get into distance, most and least used vehicles, so glad that that's a point that some folks are looking for too, as well as idling. Then we're going to end off with resources to give you back some facts and figures and things like that. Again, why is it important to you? And finally, ending off with questions from you guys. So please make sure you're writing those down so that way we can definitely get to those at the end. So with that, let's jump right in. What even is trend data? Why is it even important for you? So trend data is a tool. It's used to help you make projections and assessments over a date period of time. Okay, a question I want to pose to you is, how can you set up a policy? How can you make a change if you don't even know where you're at right now? If you don't know where you've been for the last 3, 4, 5, 6, 12 months, if you don't know that data, then how can you ever start writing and drafting a policy, so that way your drivers, your managers, and all the works can actually follow through with that? And so with that, trend data gives you a bigger perspective on really your entire fleet. I catch a lot of fleet managers at different sizes, from the hundreds to the thousands, always trying to look at the small group sample versus looking at the entire picture. This graph here, it's going to show up later in our presentation, but what it's doing in green bars, total idling hours for the fleet for that month, and then the average idle time per vehicle per month. And with this, it's helping this customer figure out, why in the world am I increasing in my idle duration almost 20% over the last 3 months, 25% even, and then being able to set a policy so that number can start going down. So that is what trend data is. Let's get into, why is it even important then? So what it's going to help you do is be able to influence decision making, provide you a lot of data to support different decisions you're already making, especially when you're writing up and drafting new policies and procedures for your company, for your fleet, for your drivers, and so on. So without that data, it's very hard to back up some of the rules that you're setting up. Right, it kind of doesn't make sense if you're not getting that data first and grabbing that before you write out the policy procedure. From there, it's going to help you create and maintain the driver policy. Most of the fleets that I met, even in the 50s to 40 vehicle range, they have some kind of written agreement between them and the driver, them and their local manager, some kind of measurement, some kind of key performance indicator, KPI, KPA, so that way they can actually measure their driver on. Trend data is going to help you to be able to track, are you on point with that policy, or is something falling through the cracks? As well as it's going to help you for today's topic, lowering fuel cost and cost of repairs. Let me shoot you over some kind of real world examples, real world data. Even 1 hour of idling per week could cost your business $65 per truck per year. Now, for some of your smaller fleets, okay, that might not be so much, but if you think about anything over 80 to 100 vehicles, even in the thousands, like some of my customers we're working on today, that is thousands of dollars per year, especially even if it's just 1 hour. What if that bumps up to 8 hours per week and then you got 100 vehicles? That number is going to keep on increasing pretty quickly if we don't do something about it. We don't write up a policy, look at our data, and then be able to follow through on that. Another thing too is, especially once we get into engine on hours, is that if a vehicle is used too much, if it has excessive engine hours, it could void a warranty. Can you imagine that? That you have a truck that you've paid $40,000 for, the engine alone is probably $2,000-3,000, not to mention all the service and whatnot. And because there was so many hours put on the vehicle, but not enough drive time, it was idling way more than it should have. The actual vehicle company, they actually go ahead and deny that. They deny the coverage of that warranty, which is just a terrible thing that we want to help you avoid, right? By using your own data to be able to set policy from there. So now we're going to get into the next topic here. How do you even get trend data? Again, like I told you before, it's not going to be full and grained in detail. I'm just here to get you started, really, to get the ideas flowing. So the first thing is that we do have a risk management report that we use very often for the customer success team and all of our customers to be able to pull trend data. The reason why we use it is because it's a very stripped down kind of summary report. It's not meant to be detailed line item of every single day. It's meant to be more so just a quick overall look at how we're doing, what is our overall risk. So there's a lot of data inside the risk management report. I really encourage you to dig into it, download it if you have not. It's under the activity tab. When you open up the activity tab, activity and then risk management tab, and you go into options, you're going to see a lot of great options here. First is if you hit custom, you can select a year, you can select more than that if you want, you can do less than that if you want, but for most of the samples today, we're going to be going off of 12 months of data. So you can see here, all of 2019 is highlighted there. Then the sub periods. This is crucial, this is important. If you miss the sub period, your data may come out completely whack or completely wrong from what you're looking for. So let me talk about that. If you hit daily, every single vehicle is going to have 365 line items times, if you have 100 vehicles or 1,000 vehicles, that makes for a super huge Excel, okay? If you do weekly, it's going to have 52 line items per every single vehicle. If you do monthly, it'll have 12. So I hope all that makes sense. It's up to you, and how do you want to measure? Do you want to see weekly values? Do you want to make a weekly trend report? Or do you want to do monthly values? Now, for some of us who are joining us from the safety presentation I gave, you'll see that in the top right corner there, we've got the exception rules. Please know for today, you can put in any rule in there and you can see how many times over the last 12 months, 6 months, whatever it is, that a rule was broken. Maybe you have a specific idling rule, no idling in the specific zone. Maybe you have a specific backing up when leaving rule. Maybe you want to see how many times it's been broken. Whatever it is, you can pop that rule in there and it'll be able to pull out that data for you. So I hope that makes sense. So just showing you that you can put in those custom rules. And then finally, when you download the Excel, what does it look like? You're actually going to go ahead and see item number, group number. What's important for trending though is a period start and period end date. Notice that this has 2 vehicles in it. It is for the last 12 months worth of data, and it's showing that which months of data that we do have available for the specific vehicles. For you then, you can then go ahead and create a pivot chart off of that. That way you can go ahead and say, okay, from January, February, March, April, and so on, what was our line item data? How much idling do we have? How many times do we have the rule being broken in idling or whatever it is? So this is, again, just to get you started. It does also come with the summary tab, which has a pivot table in it when you download it. So feel free to play around with that and see what you can find and mess with and how you like it. Really customize and tweak it. With that said, let's get into some examples that customers have asked for, some real world examples that I hope are useful for you to really get the brain going on what else can you do here, what else can you pull for your team. One quick thing, and this was, again, that the biggest poll item was total engine on hours. Okay, so I want to explain these terms that I'm saying here, engine on hours. I have a specific customer who really wanted to understand how much idle plus drive time they were doing, which means engine on time. In the risk management report, it is entirely possible to pull both the idle duration, you can see that on the right side here, plus the driving duration. So you add those two numbers together to get engine on time. Okay, the customer wanted to make sure that in the instance of warranty coverage, that he has all of his vehicles getting the appropriate amount of engine on time. And if there's any with too much engine on time in 1 month, he wanted to be able to research why that was. The report also pulls total distance so you can compare, does it make sense that the amount of drive time, idle time is lined up with the amount of distance? Were they idling way more than they were driving, and that kind of thing? Well, let's go ahead and show the graph that we used for him. You can see here that March, April, May, we're seeing an increase in number, and he actually found out that he's got a lot of new drivers that are kind of misusing his vehicles. You can dive deeper in these reports and sort it out by the most utilized or most engine hour vehicles and so on. We'll get into that in some examples here in a second. But one thing that you can then do then is say, okay, how can I now create a policy that says that I don't want you using your vehicle, idling your vehicle more than this amount of time, or if you are using it more than this, use a different vehicle. So that way you're not spending so much time in this one and overutilizing that kind of vehicle. So that's exactly what this customer was able to do now that he had the data to be able to see where is his company at. So from here, we'll move on to fleet distance. So distance, so crucial, so important, especially if you've added on a lot of trucks or vehicles to your fleet. You want to make sure, are these vehicles in use? Are they actually going out there and, was my purchase, my investment worth it, right? Was it something that was influential to help out our team? In this case, this customer really wanted to be able to see how many miles am I traveling as a fleet per month. So we can see here that he hit the 2.4 million miles in May 2020. And then in the green line, we see the average of total distance per vehicle per month. Okay, so things like this are going to help you really really be able to specify, are there unproductive miles going on, because you can break this down further again and say, okay, I want the most utilized vehicle, the most driven vehicle, I should say, and I want the least utilized vehicle as well. And it helps you in just being able to monitor different things like your idle times, your maintenance, recording accurate mileage, and so on. So just different things that this kind of report can help you out and pull, but feel free to play with it while you're using it for your own needs as well. So let's get into a little bit of utilization. Like I've been referencing here, if we were to change that previous graph around to just go sort by the actual vehicles, we can actually say, okay, in the last 12 months, which vehicles had the most usage? Now, to save the innocent here, I have actually taken out the vehicle names, of course, here, but you can see here the most used vehicle had 42,604 miles in the last 12 months. Meanwhile, the bottom of that, number 15, 22,000. So the customer found that out. He saw that and he was like, why in the world is it that this vehicle is using 42,000 miles in a whole year and this one had 22,000? He didn't even realize that that was happening. And what he was able to do was actually be able to move out that 42,000 vehicle and put in another vehicle to be in use, a newer vehicle, so that way they're burning less fuel, and they have a vehicle that can be put somewhere else, maybe saved or tucked away, put in a parking lot, whatever it is. So that way they're spreading out their distribute their costs there. They're utilizing things more evenly, and they're extending their life cycle above all else. So that's going to help out with purchasing in the future, which, by the way, what about what happens when you do buy some vehicles and they aren't utilized? So this is the opposite of the graph, a different customer, probably about 300 or 400 devices, but he actually had a manager who is asking, who is praying for new vehicles. Please, boss, give me some new trucks. We need them. We need them. And 3 months later, these bottom 15 vehicles here, actually 14, he didn't use any of them. And it was the funniest thing when we looked at this. We are like, huh, all those vehicles, every bar represents one vehicle. They had less than a mile usage. They were only moved around the parking lot. So the regional manager caught wind of that. He moved those to other departments and so on that needed the vehicles, that were actually going to use the vehicles. So that way, again, they weren't wasting money having vehicles just sitting there not doing anything, and they can continue utilizing those new vehicles that they purchase. So I hope that's helpful for you. Again, it's all manipulation of the pivot graph and the data that is already on your database. So from there, let's move into idle costs. So before I get into idling, there's going to be some fleet managers out there that, as part of their company, as part of their vocation, the work they do, that idling is okay. Idling is acceptable. You need the vehicle on in order to perform and so on. Okay, so I definitely get that. So as we continue here, please just know if it's maybe a part of your policy, it's something that maybe you can look into. But for the rest of the folks on here that idling is something that they really want to reduce, let me just ask this question. If in 12 months, your idle cost was this high, $269,828, that's an estimate. What if it was even $200,000, right? If it was that much, what things would you want to change, right? What kind of idling rules would you want to get into place? What kind of idling reports would you want to see? So that way you can see who costed us the most, when were the highest months of idling being performed, and so on, right? So this is just an estimation at $2.65 a gallon. Of course, your fleet might get gas cheaper and so on, but the whole point of this is I want you to just put yourself in the perspective of, if this were my fleet, what would I want to do with that data, right? In this case, this customer found that their average individual idle cost was about $307 out of the entire year. Right, so he had a lot of vehicles that weren't costing a lot in idling, as we're going to see here in a couple slides, but there are going to be a lot that were actually costing the company a lot, and they were misusing the vehicle. And so with this, here's that graph from early on in the presentation, right, that we can see the total amount of hours of idling, the average idling per month per vehicle as well. So something huge to be able to then see, okay, where I'm at right now, and then being able to institute policy, institute rules, put on some notifications, maybe have one person actually dedicated to looking at those notifications, things like that, so that way we can change this around and lower the overall idle cost for your fleet. Another thing we can do, like we've mentioned with utilization, we can now see who is our biggest costing drivers. Again, I've saved the innocents here, but the vehicle here at the very beginning had 1,014 total idle hours for the entire year, right? Entire 12 months. Now, what's interesting, and for those again that idling really is something that you're measuring, if that person top number one is doing the same job as number 15 here, or number 12, I should say, at $1,239 of total idle cost, why is it that that person is spending almost double the amount in idling if they do the same job? If anything, that person at the bottom should be coaching the person at the top to just give them some tips, right, to help them out in reducing that idle cost. So just know that depending on the specific job type that they have, it'd be good to be able to coach that person so that way they can reduce that cost, because this is 9 times out of 10, it's a hidden cost for a lot of fleet managers that aren't looking at this kind of thing enough, and that's like 3 or 4 extra vehicles that they could have purchased. That's investments that they could have made back into the company and things like that. So I hope that's helpful in really thinking through ways that you can actually look at idle costs and being able to measure that as well. So from there, we're going to go ahead and send you home with some resources. The report that I've used for all of the graphs today will be available to you. It's the trend report from the last 12 months. It is very similar to the one that I shared in my previous presentation over safety. It has all the same tabs of the safety trends, but it includes as well the productivity trends as well in there. It also comes with instructions on how how to set it up if you need that as well. Now, throughout this presentation, I had some links, actually, in the titles and things like that, and I made reference to some of them as well. So different resources we do have available. I encourage you, if you aren't, to go in and take a look at those kind of resources, even subscribe. Automotive Fleet and Fleet Owner, great magazines and subscription services that are just awesome. They were great to me to be able to learn even more about different things, especially things like the truck warranty claims. And then we also, here at the bottom, Geotab, different actual research that we've done to be able to present to you. Always go back to our Geotab blogs that are free resources available to all of you as well. So with that, we're going to open it up to you. What questions do you have on what we've presented today, or maybe some other items related to utilization?
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ricky. While we dive into questions, I am going to go ahead and launch our last poll, which is just seeing what areas that we covered today that you guys might be a little more interested in seeing more detailed information later on in a different session. So while you guys hop into that poll, we're going to jump into the first question, which is, what is the difference between engine on as calculated and the vehicle active data from the engine data?
Yeah, the vehicle active data. So the Geotab unit is going to read the onboard computer from the vehicle, and the onboard computer is going to shoot back to the Geotab, hey, this is the engine hours that we have there. Right, that it's actually pulling from itself. So it's from the factory saying, hey, this is my engine hours. The engine hours, engine on over there that we were showing before is 2 units. It's idle time plus drive time put together. So that was a specific use that a customer liked, and a lot of actual customers have been actually asking for that because I've been able to show it to them. So that's really the difference. They may be off by maybe a little bit here and there, just because one is right from the actual source as far as the computer, and the other is adding 2 unit numbers together. But that would be the only real difference. They should line up exactly alike because it is literally the amount of time that the engine's on that the actual computer, the onboard computer, is reading. So I hope that makes sense and answers that.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ricky. So we're going to go ahead and close out that poll because it looks like most of you have voted. So taking a look at that, it looks like most and least used vehicles and idling control are going to be some hot topics coming up in future sessions. So thank you
Awesome.
everyone for filling that out for us. Next question that we have for you here, Ricky, is there a way on trend report and fuel economy reports to add a data column with the manufacturer OEM of that vehicle? Would like to break down these reports by OEM type as well.
Gotcha. That is something I would say you may want to look at our software development kit. Essentially what the Geotab platform allows you to do is that it's an open platform. So we can send data out. We can also receive data back in from certain servers or whatever it is. So with that said, if you have that kind of data available to you, you can maybe ask the manufacturer, and then you can push that data into a report or back into the Geotab platform. As a stock feature, I don't believe we have that. That doesn't mean it's impossible. It's just, to my knowledge, I just haven't seen that. So it's a great question. Maybe something, Jay, we might want to actually follow up on and just get answered back out.
Yeah, absolutely. The next question that we have is, many of the utilization and idling reports appear to be geared to smaller vehicles and fleets. Are there any plans to create more specific reports on Class 8 utilization?
That's a great question. So essentially with the customization of any report, you can do anything that you need. So if there is something that maybe, for instance, today that you didn't see, you would want to talk to your reseller, or if you're working with customer success, you'd want to work with them to be able to build something specific for the Class A vehicles. For instance, if they use a specific power takeoff or something like that, that you want to be able to monitor or be able to pull, we would be able to pull a report on that, and we would work with you to be able to build that. But for the most part, the reporting for today is just more of like a general view, right, of my numbers, of how I'm doing overall. So you just need to be specific on what are the needs there, what you're looking for your fleet, for your company, and any of your resellers or on the customer success team would be happy to help out with that.
Awesome. All righty. And
Mhm.
it looks like the next question that we have for you here, Ricky, is,
Yeah.
and we may need a little bit of a follow-up on this one, but what can be done around fuel usage and trend data? So what can be done around fuel usage and trend data? So if you need more details, just let me know.
Yeah, well, as a stock feature, we do measure fuel intake, right? How much is going in. We do also measure how much fuel is being burned. There's, on most databases, there is an average MPG report. I believe it's available in the marketplace as well. It's just a free report from Geotab. But with that, it's totally possible to pull a trend report off of that. What you would need to do is just pull it for a long period of time and then be able to say, okay, do I want to sort it by weekly? Do I want to sort it by monthly? Whatever it is. And then you'd have the same kind of thing. Maybe what was my average MPG as an entire fleet for the last 6 months, the last 5 months, whatever it is. So that data is there. It's just a matter of pulling it, putting it into a pivot chart. Right now, again, we just have that average MPG report that just shows you, I believe it's the previous 7 days, and it's refreshing every day if you want that setting, or you could do like last week or last couple weeks, things like that. Yeah, so it's totally possible.
All right, awesome. Next question that we have for you is, how can I confirm the report is using my custom rules?
Yeah, so actually let me maybe present back my screen there. The option that I chose there at the kind of towards the beginning, can you guys see my screen, Jay?
Yep, you're
Yeah.
good to go.
Okay, great. Let me go all the way back here. So when you go back to risk management, right here. So you selected the risk management tab and then you've gone to exception rules. This is where you choose any rule that you want. So any rule that you have created off of your database can be placed into here. It's going to measure the amount of times it was broken, the distance it was broken for. So like imagine a speeding rule, and then the duration, yeah, the duration that it was broken for. So if you can imagine that, it could be anything. So if it was idling, for instance, maybe I want idling for 1 minute, every time they've broken it. So maybe there's a couple hundred times they've broken it, and then maybe they broke it for, 10, 20, 30 minutes every time, or whatever it is going to give you that total duration of time broken there. Right. And then obviously there wouldn't be any distance because you're idling. But yeah, depending on the rule you select, it's always going to go to your custom rule. So you can select that by default.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Ricky. But it looks like those are all of the questions that we had for today's session. So you guys know what that means. It makes it a wrap for this week's Wildcard Wednesday. Again, I want to say a big thank you to Ricky for joining us today and sharing this presentation. If you guys have any further questions regarding today's topic, don't hesitate to reach out to your reseller, your account manager, or to the Learning Center, and we can get you all taken care of. But with that being said, until next time, I'm Shay Green, and I want to thank everyone for joining us today. We'll see you guys next time. Same Geotab time, same Geotab channel. Thanks so much, everybody.